All right, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the WGSN-DB Going Solo Network, Going Solo Veterans Corner. I'm your host, retired Army First Sergeant and author Paul Holbert from Northern Virginia. And I'm going to bring our guest on in just a minute, but I just wanted to remind everyone that our show here is designed to showcase veterans, their careers, their lives, and how they've made the transition from the military and what they're doing in their communities today. So we're glad to have our guest. Before we get started, I want to thank our sponsor, Quest Jewelers. QuestJewelers.com. If you're looking for fine jewelry or a custom made piece, visit Quest Jewelers in Merrifield, Virginia. If you can imagine, Quest Jewelers can make it for you. So please take a moment to visit their website, and we appreciate their sponsorship of our Veterans Show. All right, so as we get started, I want to introduce our guest tonight, Andre Dickson. He's a native of San Francisco, but right now has decided to settle in North Carolina. Andre spent 23 years in the military, retired as a master sergeant with the Army Chemical Corps. That's right, Andre, right?
That is right, Paul. That's right.
All right. Well, we're glad to have you this evening. And I'm glad you would take the time out to meet with us and share with us your experiences. But before we get started, I kind of want to share something with our audience that in talking with you that just, made me green with envy. Um, I mean, here I am. You're what, about a 50-something-year-old guy?
Uh,
And yeah, in our conversations, I found out that Andre is actually retired. I mean, no longer working, folks. He is retired. And here I am getting ready to hit 61, and I'm still working. So my hat's off to you, Andre, for whatever you've done, that you're enjoying life. And I understand when I talk about your current position is administrative officer, groundskeeper, and chief domestic engineer for your house, correct?
that is right, Paul. I mean, I am retired, but I still work for my wife. So as long as I keep her happy, she tells me what to do, and I go do all that good stuff. So yeah.
Oh, well, darn, you're under the same conditions I am. I'm still working for my wife too. So we're all in the same boat here, aren't we?
Well, it's a good boat to be in, Paul.
Yeah, you're right. It is a good boat. But no, I really appreciate you taking the time to be on the show this evening. So, let's start a little bit. Let's talk about your military career. You spent 23 years in the Army, retired as a master sergeant, and you had a very interesting job. And the reason why I say that is because I was in the same career field. You were in the Chemical Corps, specializing in nuclear, biological, and chemical warfare. So let's start out talking a little bit about what made you decide to go in the military and how did you end up in the Chemical Corps?
Well, Paul, first of all, thank you so much for having me on your show. It's always an honor to be in your presence since the first time I met you, and we'll cover that later. I'll share more about that later. But how did I come in the Army? Well, I'm a native of San Francisco, and I was an average, kind of high school student, kind of C-ish, and college necessarily wasn't for me at the time. And so I joined the Army in 1987, just for opportunity, and that's pretty much it. I joined gave me a shot, and I just took the best. Just took the best of it and did my best. And next thing I knew, 23 years down the road, I was retired. So that's pretty much it.
Well, that sounds very similar to my experience. I think I shared this last week, but just, I joined just out of curiosity because of my father. And my father was killed in an Army training accident when I was 5. So I did the same thing. I joined much like you, and wasn't sure whether I was going to stay. And then the next thing you know, 21 years later, there I was retiring like you did. So what made you decide to pick the Chemical Corps?
Well, it was more of the best option. Back in those days when we went into MEPS, they had the big giant disc, and they showed me this MOS and that MOS. And when it got to the Chemical Corps, it had these soldiers in the field doing all this neat stuff. And I told the recruiter that was what I wanted to do. And it turned out good for me. It was a good fit for me. I really enjoyed it, and it was a really good career. Opened up many doors. It's, as you know, the chemical corps was something where you could go into many kind of units, from infantry to cars units, whatever. So it was a good fit for me.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I still remember my first assignment. I first went in field artillery and then re-enlisted in the chemical corps. And my first assignment, I thought, oh boy, a non-combat arms job. And the first unit they sent me to was a leg infantry battalion in Korea. So, I still didn't escape that. And I had one non-deployable job my entire career, and you and I will talk about that in a little while. But yeah, so I was the same way. I thought good fit. Well, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, you went to jump school too, didn't you?
I did. I went to jump school and spent most of my time on the special operations side of the house, whether it be the Ranger Regiment or Army Special Operations Command. So yeah, I did go to jump school.
Yeah, you spent a lot of time at Fort Bragg, I'm assuming.
I did. I spent most of my career at Fort Bragg. Yes, I did.
Yeah, yeah, I can kind of understand that based on what you were doing. So, I mean, what other opportunities did you have as far as assignments or travel? Where were some of the places you were able to go?
Yeah. So like I say, I I joined the Army in '87. My first duty station was Fort Riley, Kansas. And being a kid from California, that was a long way from home, and it was different, and it was cold. And so I did a couple years there, and went to airborne school in 1989, and found myself at Fort Bragg, and I absolutely loved it. It was
Yeah.
do all the hula hula stuff, as we say in the Army. And from there, it just went from there. From Fort Bragg, I went to Fort Benning, served in the Ranger Battalion, and then that's where after my transition from the Ranger Battalion, that's where I had the distinct pleasure to work for you as an ITC instructor. From there, went to Korea, came back to Bragg, went to Germany, came back to Bragg, and then I retired out of Bragg in 2009.
Yeah, so you were on that yo-yo string out and back to Bragg, right?
Yeah. Well, Fort Bragg is one of those places. You either love Fort Bragg or you hate Fort Bragg.
Yeah.
So, and I was one. I absolutely love Fort Bragg. In fact, I live in Fayetteville, which is the home base of Fort Bragg as well. So this is my home now.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. A lot of people do retire close to where their last duty station was. Now, myself, I retired from Germany and ended up in Northern Virginia, so it was a bit of a far cry. But you had mentioned how you had worked as an instructor with me at Fort Benning, and I just have to say, I really appreciate you because you were a very good instructor. We had a good close knit group there, and I think we got a lot of things done. We had a good time while we were there, and it was one of the first assignments I think most of us had where it allows us to go back to school and finish our education while we were still in the Army. So, we all took advantage of that. So, I just wanted to say thanks. I appreciate you there. Um, I am proud to have known you all these years, and I'm proud to call you a friend and a fellow veteran. Um, so, tell me, if you had to pick out a memorable experience from your time in the Army, can you think of one that in particular that stands out?
Wow. Well, to pick out one, I would have to say, transitioning from the Ranger Battalion, a very high octane unit, and coming to work for you. It was the perfect transition for me, and to reciprocate your compliment. you were one of the best NCOs that I worked for. You really were a soldier's kind of NCO, and we all loved you. That's why we performed so high for you. But just working for you at the chem school really gave me an opportunity to breathe and to understand how to a better way to balance your military career. Often we find ourselves just going, full throttle, and we don't take the time to do the types of jobs that are necessary to teach, to share that kind of information that we got in the field and come down and teach in the schoolhouse. And so that was a good opportunity working for you, and I really appreciate you for giving me that shot as well.
Well, and let me just say something to the audience here. No, Andre did not send me a check before the show to say all these nice things. As I said, he and I have known each other for years, and which is one of the reasons why I thought he would be a very excellent guest for the show. And the interesting thing is, you're right. Those type of assignments for a lot of military folks are few and far between, because it does give you an option to shift gears, something that we don't always get the opportunity to do. So, I'm glad that you valued that time and made use of it, the way you did. So let's if there was a valuable lesson from your military time, what do you think that would be? What do you think the military taught you?
Well, prior to coming in, I was, inner city kind of guy. All that stuff that comes with that, you could imagine. I'm not gonna pitch on myself, but coming in the Army really gave me a sense of direction. As long as you're on time, as long as you do what you're told, and as long as you're in the right equipment, you're going to be okay. It teaches you, of course, how to be disciplined, follow instructions, and that really transcended. I wouldn't be here today. I wouldn't be retired if I didn't have. I wouldn't have the great life I have today if I didn't join in 19. I don't know where I would be if it wasn't for that. So just the opportunity to serve is it's a good thing, and it was a perfect fit for me.
Yeah, that sounds like a lot of guys that I talk to. They're going in, they're not really sure what they're going to do, how long they're going to stay in, and then the next thing they're like you, all those years later, going out and looking back and saying, "Wow, look what I've done all these years."
Yeah.
So it's good, and I'm really proud that you were able to go on and have such a successful career like you did. But when you got up into those past 20, everybody starts kicking around the idea, how long should I stay? I'm past 20. I'm retirement eligible. I'm getting old. It's hard to get up at 5:30 in the morning to go out and do PT and run 3 or 4 miles at my age. So everybody goes through part of that. And what was it that kind of drove you? What told you it was time for you to retire and move on?
Well, I knew when I would see, the younger generation come through, and there's some fine men and women doing a great job. And, you just know when you transition from the BDUs to, to the new type of uniform twice, it's time, and, you're starting to get up there in a 20-year plus.
Yeah.
And it was just time, your body starts to ache, your knees start to go, and mentally the up tempo starts getting, kind of tough.
Yeah.
And it's also important to balance your family as well as best as you can. and that could be a challenge as well. So,
Yeah. So Andre, just to kind of switch gears for a second, I think we just got a question from Linda. And she's asked, do you think that the chemtrails are giving us this COVID? Is it a part of it? So, and I'm not surprised because a lot of people may think that, this may be militarily related. But I will just say this, Linda, the chemicals and agents that both Andre and I dealt with in the military are a far cry different than what we're talking about here with this virus. And in fact, the ones that we dealt with normally kill very quickly. Andre, I'm sure you would concur with that. So I'm no expert on what they're doing right now. Both Andre and I have been retired for a number of years, but I can tell you, based on our experience, the things that the Army deals with that we had to deal with when we were on active duty, those were completely different types of chemicals and biological agents that killed very quickly and in mass. So I don't think you're going to see anything here as part of that, but we do appreciate your question, Linda. Okay. So yeah, Andre, I know you looked at it and you said, ah, yeah, it's time to move on. Op tempo's rough. Got to look at my family, and I know you're a pretty big family guy, and we'll talk about that in a little while. So, how did you prepare? What did you start doing when you made that transition? Because we may have other veterans watching the show that may provide some insight to them based on what you did. How did you make that transition? How did you prepare?
Well, the first thing I did is I followed one of your examples. When I worked for you, you were, don't mind me sharing, you were working on your master's degree, I believe. At the time, I had about a year of college, and so you inspired me to to start school. And so I think I took a couple classes when I worked for you, and then by the time at about year 18, I graduated with my bachelor's degree in banking and finance. And then I decided, I might as well stay a few more years and work on my master's degree. So I worked on my MBA as well, and then when I finished that, I retired.
Yeah, so that was a good transition for you. And if I recall, um, the longer we were there stationed together, I actually had a standing rule because I had another person come in after you. And I told him, I said, if you're not going to use this time as an instructor to go back to school, I'm not going to bring you in. I'm going to bring someone in who will, because I knew that the NCOs had very little opportunity to go. So that kind of became my hard and fast rule. And I'm glad it really worked out for you because you've done well for yourself. And I think that's a lesson to a lot of our younger veterans who are still on active duty to understand just how important that can be. So it's good that you were able to do that. So we know that as you make that transition, the civilian world is completely different. I found that out the first time I got a civilian job and realized that civilians don't really pay attention to deadlines or meeting times the way we used to. So there's a completely different focus, completely different transition from that military regiment to that civilian life. So what did you do to fit in when you first retired? How did you make that fit?
So for me, it wasn't as bad. I actually retired, and then I went to work for the Air Force for DoD. And so it was a good fit. So it was an environment I enjoyed. I always loved being around soldiers, airmen, Marines, and service people. So it was a good fit. I was able to be a civilian, but I could still be in the environment. So yeah, that's pretty much, it was, so the transition wasn't so bad. It was actually good. The hardest part for me was sitting at a desk for 8, 9 hours a day. It took me a good 6 months to just be able to get used to that aspect. But
Well, the older you get, the easier it gets, doesn't it?
absolutely, Paul.
Well, the other thing about that too is you and I think if I'm not mistaken, didn't you start out your civilian career in the acquisition corps or doing acquisitions?
Yeah, I did. So I was first hired as a copper cap intern for the Air Force, and it's about a 6 month It's a 6 months in 6 month intern program where you go up to Wright Pat Air Force Base, and it's a really structured 1102 kind of program. And after
Yeah.
that, after the 6 months, they send you down to your unit, and you go down there and you do good things. So yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because I got into that once I retired as well, and then have actually spent about the last 17 years of my career either doing that at work or teaching for one of our local colleges. So you and I seem to have, we seem to have almost mirrored each other as we went through. It's very uncanny. So, I just thought that was interesting. All right. Well, we do appreciate it. And I think it's time for our commercial break. So we're going to take a short break here and we're going to see a message from our sponsor, Quest Jewelers, and then we'll be right back. All right. Welcome back, everyone. You're listening to the WGSN-DB Going Solo Network. And this is the Going Solo Veterans Corner. And our guest tonight is retired Master Sergeant Andre Dickson. And we've been talking with him about his career and his experiences and how he made the transition from the military, the fast-paced military life to the civilian life. And now he's retired. But Andre, aside from all of those things that you did, I understand that you've been pretty well, and you've mentioned it a couple of times so far in the broadcast. You're very family oriented, and I commend you for that because you're right. So many veterans, especially career veterans, have very little time to devote to their families, and you see it all the time in the movies and on shows where veterans are gone all the time. They miss birthdays, they miss wedding anniversaries, they miss holidays. But I know that you've always tried to make it a focus um, throughout your career. So I wonder if you would take just a little time now to kind of share with us. I understand you've got is it 4 kids you have?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, so you've got 4 kids, and you've got your wife, and I understand your wife is still working. So, does that mean that we can call you a kept husband now, or you don't take offense at that term, huh?
No, no, I am blessed, Paul. I'm so blessed. My wife, she's actually an 1102 as well. And yeah, she's I'm just blessed, so she kind of gave me the permission to retire. So okay.
Oh, no wonder you're blessed. What a great lady, right?
Yes, yes.
But I know you've always had that, that family orientation about you because I remember it from when you and I were working together. So what is it? How have you made that work for you? I mean, you've got right, what are the ages of your kids? I mean, are a lot of them ready to leave school, going to college? Where are they at?
Yeah, so yeah, I have 4 kids. My oldest, he turned 27 this month.
Hmm.
And he's still trying to find himself, but he's doing good things though. My second son, he's 24, and he's actually training. He's actually in special forces now. He's in the course now. He's doing well.
Wow.
The language school. So I'm really proud of him. He swung by today and doing really good things. My daughter, she is 21. She graduates this Sunday from Spelman. So I'm
Oh,
really
wow.
proud of her. She's the smart one. And then I have a 16-year-old. He's a sophomore. He's really sharp as well. So he's going to do some good things. He's plans on going to Morehouse, but I'll support him. Wherever he wants to go. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you're a pretty proud father, right? With a list of kids like that. See, your son who's there at the Special Forces Center, does he finish the Q course? He's now in language school. Is that what he's doing?
Well, he's in the Q course now. So
Okay.
he's in the Q course now, and so language school is part of that. They
Oh, okay.
they kind of revamped, the entry system. Back in our days, you had to come in and do 3 or 4 years. Now they have a pipeline. Since the op tempo is so high,
Yeah.
they have a pipeline where you could come in and you have an opportunity to compete. And so he's been in, I guess, about 18 months now. So the training, as you can imagine, is fairly intense.
Yeah, oh, yeah. I can imagine. But it's always good to be able to see what your kids are doing and what they're accomplishing. So I can understand you being very proud of it. And how difficult was that for you? I know you've been retired for a few years now, but still, how difficult was it for you juggling a big family like that and transitioning out of the service and then going to work and what were some of the challenges you faced?
Yeah, just trying to balance. I always kind of had a rule. If I had like one tough job, I would make it a point to have a job where I can make sure I could go to the baseball games and that kind of stuff. Make sure that I was there for my kids. So I wouldn't be my age now, and my kids were like, "Hey, Dad, I don't really know who you are. You weren't around." So I always made it a point to do that. As they get older, parenthood isn't perfect. We have our things, and
Mhm.
I try to just try to be the best supporting dad I can be, without my values, and making sure they do the right thing. And sometimes we don't always agree, but at the end of the day, as long as I'm steering them in the right direction, at the end of the day, that is going to be what it is.
Yeah, I mean, you can. It's always the old saying, you can only do so much and do the best you can. But when you have kids that turn out going down the right path like yours appear to be doing, I'm sure that it's a joy for you to watch them and watch as they go out into the community. So, you know, speaking of community, what type of activities do you and your family do? What do you do in your community?
Right. Well, of course, right now we're not doing much. We're all on lockdown,
Yeah.
but of course, we go. We don't do too much within our. We don't do too much. We do. Actually, right now they're kind of doing their own thing. They're in school
Mm.
and they're in train. They're just kind of doing their own thing. So we're not
Yeah.
doing too much now, but I always made it a point to try to expose them to travel. And one thing I always wanted to push on them, not push on them, but to instill the importance of education, education, education. Today it's not the same kind of time frame where like our age, where these kids these days, just to compete, you really have to have a degree. So I always encourage them to seek that, and so they've all gone in that direction in one facet or another.
Yeah, I mean that's really good. So you know you're talking about we're talking about looking at the future and seeing what our kids are doing. So let me ask you this. What are you looking at for your future? What is, you're retired. I know you're waiting for your wife to retire. What are you guys planning with all the kids going out on their own? What is on your bucket list that you and your wife now want to do after you've raised the kids and sent them out? And I still remember my wife and I sitting down and talking about a bucket list because kids were gone and we were empty nesters as they call it.
Mm.
So what is on your bucket list? What are you looking to do now?
So I don't call it a bucket list. I call it a life list. But
Life list. Okay.
yeah, so our life list, or my life list. Excuse me, my life list. I love to travel, and so does my wife. So we travel often, and when the kids are able to come with us, they come with us too. But we travel. There's a saying, I'm not sure who said it, but travel is the only thing that makes you richer. And so we really enjoy going to different cultures, eating a different food. That just makes me, as you see, I'm smiling now, but unfortunately, we're going to have to put that on hold for a bit. We were scheduled to go to India in December, but we're not going to be able to make that. So I'm not sure when we're going to be able to pick that up again.
Yeah, it's you know what, you hit the nail right on the head because that's exactly what we've been doing. We've been traveling all over the world as we get opportunities. And of course, my wife and I are still working, but we're taking time off to travel, while we can. And you're right with, a lot of the quarantine and places being shut. We're just now looking at making arrangements to take our camper, our RV out
Oh
later
wow,
on
yeah.
this summer and start making use of it again, but travel, like you said, I'm with you, man, because travel is the thing that we look at. And of course my wife is crazy about the beach, so I'm sure I'll be spending a lot more time on the beaches as we move forward. But is there any place in particular that you really like to go that you haven't had an opportunity to go yet?
Wow, you know what? There's not any place that, I mean, we've been everywhere since we were in Bali. We were in Indonesia the end of March, and we had to cut our trip short because we had to get back. But we
Yeah.
want to go back there. Indonesia, specifically Bali, is beautiful. The people, it's just the culture is. Oh, I mean, so we really want to get back there, but every place we've been, we really there's just something new, something really that makes you say, to most of the places
Yeah.
we've been. We were in Colombia the year before last. We've been been to Jordan, been to Israel. We could go on and on. It's just, but there's not too many places I would not want to go. So, as it said,
Yeah.
the world is your oyster,
Yeah, yeah. Now I can understand. I mean, everybody has their favorites, but when you love to travel so much, it's hard to pick, isn't
It's very,
it?
I mean, I couldn't even pick one because each place has something special to it, and then it's a lot different when you're going to have fun as opposed to going someplace to, you know, you know, when you're going to serve or something, when you're going on a deployment or something. So it's nice to go where you could stay in a nice 2-3 star hotel. Yeah.
Yeah, I tried to express to my wife what a difference it was, going camping and taking our RV as opposed to living in the woods in the cold. Having that RV, you can go inside and sleep comfortably at night and sit out and have lights outside or light a fire pit. It's completely different, isn't it?
It's completely different. And it's funny you mention that, because that's one thing, my kids were trying to get me. They're like, hey, Dad, can we go camping? I'm like, I don't say no, but I'm like,
Yeah.
I kind of steer them off in a different, direction. So
Yeah. So you did enough camping in your day, right?
Yeah. So we're good with that one. Yeah. For sure.
Well, I tell you what, brother, I really appreciate you. I'm really happy for your success and all the things you've been able to accomplish. I'm really glad that I was able to get you to come on the show. But as we close out, if there was one thought that you could leave with our listeners, one thought or one piece of, I don't want to call it advice, but just maybe some sage thought. If there's something you could share with our listeners, what would that thing be?
I would say that especially, and I think it's very fitting for where we are right now. But some say to live life is a struggle. Sometimes we look at our friends or our peers, and we think their life is so perfect, and we judge maybe our life is not so well. But that's part of life, is you're going to have your struggles, and just be grateful of the life you have, the health you have, the family you have. Don't take it for granted, because we're not going to be here for forever. And the most important thing is to make sure you love your neighbor, and to try and be as kind as you can. I struggle with that sometimes, but it's something I try and work on, to be a good person, to be the best version of me.
Well, it sounds like a good way to look at things. And I'm gonna use what you said about having your health, having your life, and I kind of want to share something with our veterans now. Um, the VA just recently came up, and there's an article on the VFW, and you'll see the website on your screen right now, the VFW Action Corps newsletter from May 8th. They've got a number of good articles on there, but one in particular is a VA program that they have now, where they have a burn barrel registry. And for those of you that are veterans, I'm sure you're well aware of what those burn barrel registry, or what a burn barrel is, because we burn all kinds of things, whether it's fuel, whether it's the pots that go in our porta potties. I remember when I was in the desert, I had to get soldiers to go out and burn those, put them on detail every other day to burn those pots and stir them. And I have to tell you, I wouldn't send them unless I did it myself. So the first time we got the detail, as a platoon sergeant, I went out there and spent 2 hours burning the potty pots, because I wanted to do it, because my soldiers did it. And then, being under those burning oil wells. So if you're a veteran and you were deployed in those areas and you found yourself in those situations, check out that VFW Action Corps newsletter, the website at the bottom of the screen. There's an article there. You can go to va.gov, and they have a link on there that'll tell you how you can check to make sure you're qualified, and you can actually input your information for the Veterans Burn Barrel Registry. So I just wanted to point that out to all of our veterans who are watching. Make sure you do that, like Andre said, take care of yourself, look out for your life. And for all those veterans, we appreciate your service. We hope that you're living your best life. And we want to thank you for tuning in to this episode of Going Solo's Veterans Corner. And we hope to see you on the next show 2 weeks from tonight. And Andre, I want to thank you again for being on the show. And, let's stay in touch, man. I wish you the best, brother.
All right, brother. Thank you so much, Paul, for having me on your show. And again, you've always been a great example for me. So thank you, brother.
All right, and you take care. And to our viewers and listeners, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time.